Strands Agents is an open source agents SDK released by AWS in May 2025, which can process input by reasoning, decide which tools to use, execute tools, and then generate responses. You can spin up agents with just a few lines of code and have a bunch of built in tools. Today, I'll show you how to build a movie recommendation assistant which remembers your preferences. Let's get started. Let me quickly show you how it works. So I can say like suggest some comedies. First, it checked the memory and it couldn't find any memory. And it called recommended movies tool to put the relevant movies. I can say and I can rate like this. And it can store the rating in the memory like this. So let me spin up another terminal to create a new session. And it still has the memory, like I rate it inside out as 5 stars, and I like animations and comedy. So if I say suggest some movies, and voila, it suggested me some comedies and animations based on my preferences. Cool. Here's the overall architecture of this project. There are four key components: Strands Agents SDK, tools, Mem0 memory layer, and Amazon Bedrock. Strands Agents SDK processes user query, selects tools to use, executes tools, and generates response. Mem0 is an open source memory framework which handles memory processing. Amazon Bedrock provides models for main agent as well as Mem0 processing. Let's look at some example workflows. If I say suggest some comedies, then Strands agent will first process the user query and it should call a memo0 memory to see if there is an existing memory. And then after that, it should call a recommend movies tool to retrieve movie titles based on the existing memory as well as the user query. And then the agent will generate a response. If I say I didn't like the metrics, then the agent will process my query again, and this time it should call a rate movie tool to find the matching title as well as all the titles under the same series. And then the agent should call a memo0 memory to update the titles with the new rating, and then generate the response based on that. First, you have to configure the AWS credential. Go to AWS console and find IAM and users and create a new user. I will just say movie assistant, and then attach policies directly and find Bedrock and attach Amazon Bedrock full access. and then create user. Once it's done, go to the user you just created and then go to security credential, click on create as access key and get the ID and secret. Once you get the key, run AWS configure and it will ask you for access key ID and then secret. So put those keys there. Next, go back to AWS console and go to Amazon Bedrock and find model access. Make sure that you enabled Claude Sonnet 4 for the main agent and Claude 3.5 Haiku and Titan text embeddings v2 for Mem0 operations. I initially thought that Memo0 would be using the same model as the main agent, which is Claude Sonnet 4, but I was getting model access error and I spent a good amount of time figuring out what was happening. And it turned out that Memo0 is using Amazon Titan Embedded Text v2 model for embedding and Claude 3.5 Haiku for LLM. So make sure to enable those models on Bedrock so that you won't fall into the same rabbit hole. Moving on to the fun part, let's start coding. So this is the file for the main agent. First, you will have to import agent from Strands and Memo0 memory and use LLM from Strands tools. And you will need user ID to use Memo0 memory and define system prompt. Creating agent is super simple. Pretty much this is it. So pass the system prompt that we just created and then pass the tools the agent can use. We will be using Memo0 memory, useLM, and two custom tools, rate movie and recommended movies tools. You can manually type like rate movie. Of course, you will have to import those tools at the top as well, but yeah, you can do like this, but by setting load tools from directly true, you can load all the custom tools under the tools folder. So I'm doing that. You can specify a model like this, but if you don't specify, it will use the default, which is Claude Sonnet 4. Let's create a recommended movies tool. What it does is to filter the movies by genres if any specific genres were provided. And if no user memory is provided, it will just sort the filtered movies by ratings and pick the top 5. If memories were provided, then it will extract the genres and check if which genre users liked or disliked. And it has some sort of scoring system based on users' preferences. And then sort the titles based on the finalized score. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier, but when you create tools, make sure to use a tool decorator, otherwise it won't work. Next, let's create a rate movie tool. What it does is to find matching title based on users' input. If that title has other titles in the same series, and it will fetch those titles as well and update the rating for those titles based on the user's input. And if the user rating for the specific genre was more than or equal to 4, then it will store as the user liked that genre, and otherwise it will store as the user didn't like the genre. And that's it. Now you have a movie recommendation agent which remembers your preference. The key is using Mem0 with Faiz to store user preferences that persist between sessions. making your agents much more personalized and useful. The entire code and step by step tutorial are in the description below. Build it yourself and let me know if you have any feedback.